going on, all you Gary Busey enthusiasts? So you're back again tonight. That's right. We're in the concrete jungle this time to talk about the sequel to the movie we just reviewed. We're talking about Predator 2.
Predator 2. Hunting season opens again this Christmas.
He's getting too old for this shit. That's right. We have Danny Glover in the lead role as the action hero in Predator 2.
So this movie basically takes place 10 years after the original film. Predator returns to Earth and starts killing more people, but instead of the jungle, it's a concrete jungle, the urban jungle of Los Angeles. This movie came out in 1990, so during that time we had a lot of John Singleton films. They had the urban feel to it, and that's what they brought with this film, which they tried to do something different with it, getting out of the jungle setting of claustrophobic sense to it, but a wide open city and all these killings. There's this drug war going on. People are killing people, each other, gangs and stuff like that in the streets of LA. It's chaos. You have cops all over the place and trying to figure out what's going on, and to find out that there's this predator kind of hanging out in the buildings above and killing people, as we saw in the first film.
Like you mentioned, this was filmed obviously in 1990, back when those John Singleton films were out, and also Candyman.
Yeah,
this reminded me a lot of too, the way that they filmed inside the apartment complexes and big sky rises and everything. It really brings you back to that time. But like you mentioned, it takes place 10 years into the future after 1987's film. It was only filmed a couple of years after, actually. But yeah, we're getting Danny Glover as the action star in this, and I get it. He can play like the older,
Murtaugh,
wise veteran cop. We've seen him, yes, Murtaugh, obviously from Lethal Weapon. We get him as Lieutenant Mike Harrigan. He's witnessing all this craziness that's going on in the streets, as you mentioned, the big drug war and gang war between the Colombians and the Jamaicans going on. There's a body count going on, and they're finding these bodies that are skinned alive and heads being ripped off and all this weird stuff happening. And that's where the story kind of goes from there. And you get old Gary Busey also coming in as one of the stars. These two were really big back in the 80s and going into 1990. This was a big chance for the two of them, two pretty big stars back in the day. And that's who they chose for this film. But rewatching Predator 2, I really love the concept. I really love the idea of taking the Predator from the actual jungle to now the concrete jungle of LA. It's a really cool concept, and they did some interesting stuff with it. I can appreciate some things, but unfortunately you can't put Danny Glover in the lead role here and expect him to go toe to toe with Schwarzenegger's hero in the first one. It's just not the same.
No, it's a movie that doesn't hold up, honestly. I remember enjoying this a lot as a young kid, but renting a VHS, and that's cool, Predator, killing people and stuff. And now looking back at it, yeah, it just doesn't, because Danny Glover, he's Murtaugh, he's the same character, he's a cop. He's all old, he's out of breath, he's sweaty all the time, he's trying to keep up, he's got this huge freaking gun, and get on the case of Predator and try to hunt him down and capture him and stuff like that. And other cops die along the way, gang members, some really ridiculous over the top kill scenes, but some really great practical effects at the same time. More bodies being skinned and hung upside down, returning the actor from the first film that played Predator returning this time around, playing the character. Massive is always really great depiction of this alien creature and some really brutal scenes. And that's pretty much it to the film. There's a lot of clunkiness to it. The tone's a little all over the place at times. I like how they did a different urban feel to it. It's definitely summed up 1990 when stuff was going on in LA, especially back then. But it's just kind of all over the place in terms of tone, and not some good choices on casting in this film. Gary Busey and Danny Glover wouldn't be my top choices, but it was 1990.
You mentioned the tone of the movie and the writing, I felt was lackluster, and that's what ultimately made it subpar when compared to the first one. It just kind of went all over the place with the story. It wasn't linear. It would hop from scene to scene. It just felt disjointed to me, and not a tight shot, and beautiful photography and cinematography like the first film in the jungle there. But yeah, it just felt disjointed to me. And not anywhere near the level of the first one was in terms of the action or anything like that. The concept with Danny Glover and being in the future with this giant gun with the scope on it, it looked cool, but it also looked really heavy. And, I get it that he has a laser now, a laser sight on his, gun, and he's going toe to toe with the Predator with his laser sighting, but it's a little different. But yeah, like you mentioned with the Jamaicans, I found it interesting. You had the Jamaicans with the dreadlocks, and then you also have the Predator with the same kind of
Yeah.
hair and everything like that. So there's some juxtaposition there between the two. Um, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. Overall, didn't live up to the original one for sure.
Well, it's never a good sign when you're watching it. You fall asleep. Like it's not that interesting. It took me 2 sittings to watch it. I literally fell asleep. I wasn't really into it because I watched the first one and went right into the second one and just totally different movies. Obviously it's a sequel, trying something different. Stephen Hopkins being the director too, instead of McTiernan. So that didn't really work either. The good things about this is the Predator and some of the kill scenes, and the shots, and some of the music's pretty decent. But besides that, everything else is forgettable in this movie. And I was kind of disappointed. I remember, being a kid and enjoying this a lot more, but as an adult, doesn't stand the test of time in a movie I wouldn't recommend. So that being said, I'm going to give Predator 2 a 2 out of 5 Danny Glover hair pieces.
Yeah, Predator 2 doesn't live up to the original. Obviously, there are a lot of problems with it. One thing that I did appreciate at the end, I liked how we got to see the Predator ship. I thought that was pretty interesting, but then the effects looked pretty terrible when it showed like the different predators coming in at the end there to get their fallen comrade. They just kind of disappeared. The effects looked pretty shoddy, but it was cool how we got to see that old 1700 era pistol that was given to him at the end as like a trophy.
Yes.
Like you were awesome enough to win this battle, and here you go. And then that ties into the film we just saw over the weekend, the new film Prey. So very cool with that, and cool how they, Prey could have used not only stuff from the original, but it got to take a couple Easter eggs from Predator too. But with that being said, yeah, it's just not as great a film as the first one. It had some cool kills, but like you mentioned, yeah, it's when you're falling asleep or having to watch it in two separate occasions, it's not a good sign. Unfortunately, Danny Glover, Gary Busey, and Bill Paxton just weren't enough to keep this movie afloat. Especially back in 1990, it kind of killed the franchise for a while. And then the franchise was dead after a couple other Aliens versus Predator movies. But finally, we got a worthy sequel just this past weekend. But the Predator 2, for all that being said, I am going to give Predator 2 a 3 out of 5 Danny Glover hair pieces.
Yeah, I feel like this movie is more of a comedy than anything, unintentionally. But I did like that one bit with Danny Glover. He calls Predator pussy face. That was a good one-liner of the movie. It was just pretty ridiculous fight scene at the end, and like you're saying, all the Predators show up and CGI is not as good, but the whole gun scene is cool. How that ties in with Prey that we just reviewed. Another thing I forgot to mention about the first movie, that little bag that Billy has with the medicine in it.
Oh, right.
Goes back, so his private relative,
right.
Naru.
Damn, that's cool.
Naru, yeah, it was probably like his great grandma or something, passed down generation. So that was kind of cool tie-in. But with that being said, I want to hear from you guys. What did you like about Predator 2? What didn't you like about it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to click subscribe. Also, check out these wild boys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV movie news and reviews.
Man, we got to watch a couple Predator films over the weekend, 3 in like 2 nights, basically.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. Had a blast going back and watching these movies, especially Predator, and it had fun, watching Predator 2 in several different sittings. It had some cool scenes in it, but still had fun watching it, and glad we got to watch it and review it. But with that being said, yeah, we just wrapped up all the good Predator movies in the Predator franchise. Anyway, I don't have any want to waste 3 hours of my life watching Aliens versus Predator and Alien versus Predator Requiem. I know they're terrible, and I never want to ever watch them again.
Yeah, they're one of the few movies I will never revisit. I think I saw them in theater. It came out, and never again.
Thank you guys for watching our review of Predator and now Predator 2. Also, make sure to check out our review of Prey that we just did over the weekend. Make sure you guys watch that. It's a hell of a film. So until the next classic Cinephellas movie review, I'm Uncle Dutch Henry.
And I'm Logan Glover.
Until next time, signing out from the concrete jungle. Cheese!
Cheers!
You'll get 12 with shit.